Hello and welcome to another special edition right here live on Twitter, on Twitch, and on the Facebook page for W2M Network. I'm Sean Garmer here with me, Erik Watkins. We are here to talk about a 2-0 win for the United States over Jamaica. And Erik, it took a little bit. It wasn't something that happened like right off the bat. It could have. It certainly could have, but after that moment, things kind of settled in. But the second half, once again, it seems like the U.S. is going to be a second half team. Every goal in this World Cup qualifying has been in the second half, Erik. All of those goals. So, starting off with, our headlines. Like, what do you feel like is the big headline for you coming out of this game?
My biggest one, breathing a sigh of relief. Yes, what is CONCACAF World Cup qualifying without a moment of controversy, which we'll get to in a little bit, I'm sure, but seeing Ricardo Pepi, your boy, putting in more work, everything flowing just the right way in the second half, getting that result, breathing a sigh of relief. It's like, okay, we got these 3 points that we were really looking for. Everything is as expected. Everybody can take a breath.
Yeah, I think it's not necessary. I agree with you about the taking a breath, about the feeling good about it. I think what I felt the best about was this finally felt like you had command.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't feel worried about anything. I never was. I mean, the couple of chances that Jamaica had. I mean, a shot that from 25 yards out that was wide, a header that went far. Matt Turner kind of jumped for the pictures. It looked like, but for the most part, it was. From the minute go, they were very direct. Paul Areola, 20 seconds in, could have had a denial of a goal scoring opportunity. I think, we could talk about that a little bit about the decisions with the rookie referee, basically. But that's what I liked. I liked that it felt comfortable. It felt like with the formation that was put out there by Greg Berhalter, everybody was in a position that made sense. There was no glaring, oh my God, why is this guy playing here? Even, Paul Areola himself, who, we always kind of talk about, and you as a DC fan know him well.
It was a DC moment. There was a DC moment, though. But
yeah, there was definitely a DC moment, but it's, I think, there's the positive of Paul Areola, I think, came out more than some of the negatives of.
Oh, yeah.
The dude is just direct. He runs. He doesn't stop running. He gets into the right channels. He takes guys with him if he has to. And this is what that felt like. This whole group of being able to just get out there and take it to them. For me, it's great to see it in his first game, really in this World Cup qualifier. The rounds of this Yunus Musa, man. I talked about him in the preview. He was fantastic in this game. I mean, that first goal, his run that he makes is the one that kickstarts it all and gets it over to Serginho Dest, who I thought had one of the much better games you've seen from him in a U.S. men's national team colors. To cross it over to Ricardo Pepi for the first goal, which credit to him going a little bit low for that header and then still being able to put it in. That's not something that anybody can just do, and him knowing exactly where to be and pop it in there for that header. That's great to see for him for that second goal, or for that second goal in 2 games at that point. He later on gets a third. Which is similar thing. Anthony Robinson on the left, over to Brandon Aronson, almost like a give back from the Honduras game where, it was Pepi giving it to Aronson. This time it was Aronson giving it to Pepi for that second goal. And then it continued, Erik. I mean, it wasn't just those two. When Pepi and Aronson came off, and you got Weah and Jossie Zardes. Weah set one up for Jossie in a similar way. Jossie wasn't able to put it in because it came a little bit too quick for him. But that's the positivity that I'm talking about, the confidence I'm talking about. Even when you put in the subs, it's like they don't miss a beat at all. And they kept going, kept doing the same thing. Now, obviously, it helps that you're playing a team in Jamaica that's missing two of its biggest stars up front that make it to where you're not as worried about them, right? When you're talking about a guy that's in super fire form like Antonio, and then also no Leon Bailey as well. I mean, that's two guys that are very key, and I feel bad for the coach who has to keep kind of playing with not his ideal team, and then suffering for that. Obviously, you're playing the U.S. It's always going to be hard, but when you're not playing with the guys you want, it's not the same. But I mean, like, who else to you was a standout in this game?
Well, you really covered it, especially what I liked with the Musa, and as you said, that direct run. Now, I got to give a little extra credit to Sergiño Dest, because all the times that we have mentioned, great going forward, great going forward, great going forward, as we saw with that first goal, when it came time to really making sure everything was solidified at the back, helping to keep that possession, which early on, the U.S. was fantastic at. We were keeping it at a rate of 65, 70%. Like, okay, we take time, even though, as you said, Jamaica was out there really top two guys up front. Let's not give them anything too much early. Keep control. If there is something, all right, he helped facilitate switching to quick counters. So overall, I was thoroughly impressed.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And when you're talking about defense, for me, we've mentioned the two Robinsons before. They did what they had to do.
Mm-hmm.
For me, with the standout, the guy that we've seen him. We didn't get to see him much in the Gold Cup because he got hurt, right? So, but Walker Zimmerman is a guy that steps into a role, plays alongside Miles Robinson, and plays extremely well for me. Didn't cause you any problems. Didn't have any moments where you're worried about him. And he can also come up and be a force on the set pieces, which the U.S. didn't really have a lot of those, and that's actually positive. Like, he can do both those. But it's again, like, I like the fact that once again we're talking about MLS guys coming in, stepping up, and making it hard for Greg Berhalter to have to then make decisions. He didn't even get a replacement in for John Brooks yet. And once again, somebody besides John Brooks plays, and guess what? They play decently, or they play well. And that's, for me, I really, really just enjoying this about this young team is they're just stepping up and understanding, okay, we have our roles, let's play them. And then credit to Berhalter for not trying to just be cute, like, oh, we're going to try to play Tyler Adams at right back, and we're going to play Sergiño Dest at left back, and we're going to play, Brendan Aronson at the 8, and haven't tried to do too many things. Like, everybody is playing where you would feel like it. And now I feel like he has some, again, just one game, right? There's still two more games to go, and you got a very important one on Sunday, perhaps your toughest one of the entire set of 3, to go to Panama and then play in Panama. That's a difficult task right there. Just the way that whole stadium is and everything. You thought El Salvador and Honduras were bad. Wait till you get down to there and how that is. We'll talk about Panama in a little bit, because they went through a little bit of a shock themselves with what happened. today. But I think for the most part, Eric, I mean, you have your front. You at least have two front players that you feel like
Mm-hmm.
right now I can't take
Absolutely.
those guys off. I can't take off
No.
Aronson and Pepi.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, the way that they link together, Pepe's just proving, like, saying, hey, you need me, I am a beast. Right there, especially inside the 18s. Like, you have, at least for this particular window, you have a good core that you really don't want to mess with. Now it's just, all right, who can you rotate to really step up? Make sure you get certain people minutes in these key positions, knowing that you're trying to still get that good result with one more to go after that. So it's a different sort of a juggling act, but now with a much better basis to try to get everything juggled.
Yeah, no, certainly, and that's the thing is, like you said, they work well off each other.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were kind of a microcosm of that first half, where the U.S. obviously had possession. They didn't play badly or anything. This wasn't, the what we saw in Honduras. It was just players trying to figure out how are we going to get through this team. I mean,
Yeah.
we saw Jamaica start kind of growing into the game as well, and then it's Aronson just kind of doing some like, let's just go in and take some pot shots, and it's just like that's not what we're trying. That seems kind of counterintuitive to what you're trying to do, to what you're doing from the start. And then Pepe doesn't. He wasn't. He was trying to find the game. He couldn't get into it. He wasn't really involved much at all.
Mm-mm.
It felt like I thought Weston McKennie had a decent game. He was very active, like at least on the flanks. But I felt like at the beginning, because you have so many moving pieces, right? So much new in there between Musa, McKennie, Adams, Aronson. It was just like Areola too. Like, where do we all fit in here? Where are we supposed to
Yeah.
be?
Where do we fit? Where are we supposed to be, and where's the best ways that we can go? Because trying like some of those paths up the middle didn't necessarily work right away. And then you had, right along 12th, 13th minute, like I was saying, the DC moment with Areola. More of the play was up wide, and what to me looked like not the optimal cross, but if you know that you have your guys in a being right position, that's at least a half chance. Areola, bit of an overrun, seen that before, but after that, it was like, okay, they took those first 2 minutes or so with those chances and says, all right, now we know this works. Now we can go ahead and try building up to set that up again. But Jamaica was also like, okay, now we know what they're trying to do. We need to close down in those areas as well. And then it became a little bit of a counterattacking fest. Like somebody was trying to set someone else up off guard after that. And then the end of the first half is like, okay, everybody settled and it became a bit more tactical.
Yeah, certainly they picked it up in the second half again. Coming off a counter, great move to get that going, and just and it was really started by Sergio Dest, and then got all of that going in there and get it back to Sergio Dest again. He's at his best, like we talked about, going forward, and he was able to accomplish that here in this game again. Let's see what happens against. I think Panama, to me, is a much better test of have they actually grasped it. Because, listen, again, like Nicholson's been as good as you can expect them to be for Jamaica. He's gotten goals when you don't expect it. They weren't able to get a goal in this game, but all the other games, they were able to get goals, right? And against Mexico, when you figured, it's going to be the same thing. Mexico's just going to stroll to a comfortable win, and they made it hard for them. Obviously, as we'll talk about, because I watched a lot of that Mexico-Canada game as well. Much different looking Mexico now when you have all your stars, which they didn't have in the last window. But again, for Jamaica having the team that they have and missing several players, they still have tried. I think this is the first game where they really looked, at a different level. And, credit to their coach for at least keeping it. I mean, they were never far away. And I thought in that last 10 minutes, they had opportunities that had that, some of that gone the right way. Maybe we're talking about a 2-1 and making it interesting, but they just weren't able to. And I think the U.S. just had better control of things at that point. And that's the positive, I think, for me too, is just, okay, you're missing Rida Pulisic, you're missing a Gio Reyna, you're missing some other players, and you still went out there and you still performed well, right? And that's showing more to that depth that the team has.
To where we're not just reliant on these 3 or 4 big names, and if we don't have 1 or 2, we collapse. And these were the things we were speaking about, how you organize that depth to get these results just like this. And that's why I say, hey, breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief, because this was something we were looking for. We knew this had to be 3 points. They figured it out, and it was. So it's like, okay, all of the panic that you had from September, you can take some of it away at the very least.
So just a few questions for you, Erik, of some, moments in the game. Obviously, that first one, 20 seconds in, Kamar Lawrence takes down Paul Arriola right there, close to the box. A denial of a goal scoring opportunity for you. Should it have been a red card? Is there such a thing as it's way too early?
I don't think so.
Because that completely changes the game, right?
It does. And I admit, 20 seconds in, ideally you shouldn't have that big moment. But for something like that, irregard to when it happens, dog so is dog so. And seeing that and seeing the replays, yes, I thought it should have been a red. It would have been very unfortunate, but if you're going like that and then we saw it again just some minutes later, still early on, if you're calling it with these things, then you go ahead and you have to give a red. You can't have too much of an in-between in that situation.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But that's the thing where you don't have VAR, right? Mm-hmm. And then that's my biggest problem is you're going to bring in basically a rookie ref from Grenada.
Yep.
His first big game that he's doing, a World Cup qualifier. And you're seeing Jamaica players and even U.S. players rushing him, and he's having to back away and go to the end line or to go to back from the touch line and having to figure out what he's doing. And, and it's like, CONCACAF, who made this decision to not have something that almost every other league, your own leagues in your own freaking CONCACAF, Liga MX and MLS use this? Why was this decision made to make it harder for these refs where you already get enough problems?
You do.
CONCACAF. Oh, you CONCACAF'd it. You messed it up. You don't need to make it harder on the refs.
No, because first of all, especially with him, you could tell in that moment he was overwhelmed. You could tell even after 10, 15 minutes, he was still a little bit overwhelmed. And yes, for those who argue, resources in Panama or resources in Honduras and El Salvador to where your stadia aren't the best and all that, I get that. But if you're organizing these things, you know where and when these matches are going to be hosted, at least for the first part. Why couldn't you, through some sort of pool, some sort of investment, somehow say, okay, we're going to offer and we're going to give everything you need to where at every CONCACAF stadium, you're going to have this technology. You're going to have these facilities so we can have VAR. Definitely dropping the ball.
Yeah, Fonty, good to see you too, sir. Good to see you too. But that's my my thing with this is like it doesn't make sense. And then when you get it into the second one with Brandon Aronson, like 32nd minute around there, right? It's worse to me is he's right on that line, right? Where it was clearly outside the box, but it's still like that's another is a denial of a goal scoring opportunity. And it's like he's too scared at that point. You can tell, you can see it in his face. You see it in his face. He is mortified of having to make a decision, and he kind of just it's like, all right, let me just do the one that maybe won't make everybody happy, but I'm gonna do the one that okay, you can't really, argue. At least he got a card, right? So you got another yellow card. And thankfully, you really didn't have another big moment like that in the game. But it's just this is what VAR is there to prevent, to help prevent things like that. So you get it clear and make that decision. And you say, look, I went to the video screen and I made my decision. Whether you stick with your original decision or you don't, that's what that's for. And it's ridiculous to me because it's like, what's the point of not having it, right?
Yeah. And Casey Keller even proves that at halftime, even with that incident, you saw on the replay, he got a piece of the ball, which is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
You would then, with VAR, be able to go back and say, all right, however that would work, but it wouldn't even necessarily have been a foul because the defender made contact with the ball. But you still go ahead and call a foul, but by nature of the foul, you go ahead, you have a yellow, but if it was a foul in that situation, why don't you immediately argue or even consider dog-so, which would have been another red? That situation was a bit confusing, and I get it. Looking at that, I can't confess that I would make the perfect choice in that situation, so he's still human, completely understand, but like you said, this is where VAR would have come in, and with something like that, it's like, okay, second set of eyes and seeing it's not a foul, it's gone, it's what have you. Life goes on, and you're not risking getting bum rushed again.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense to me. And I mean, it feels like we're just waiting for that moment, right, where there is something that, oh man, this got totally wrong, and then you can't go back and fix it, right? And what if it does cost somebody their spot or points or whatever? And like that's a problem, right? So I don't understand because you're going to use this at the World Cup anyway. It's not like, oh, well, now they're not going to use this at the World Cup, and then you guys were the first ones to go, oh, we went back to the old system. It's like, no, it's just more CONCACAF being stupid. So
yeah, they're building a stadium. They've got VAR in mind already in Qatar. You're going to have it. It's there.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So, and I mean, like, another question I have is, I get it. I totally get that this is a three-round tournament, basically. And you got to save players' minutes, but take off Ricardo Pepi in 64th minute when he's almost on a hat trick. I mean, like, shouldn't you at least give him at least 10 more minutes to see if he could get it? Or,
maybe 75th, 80th, and then if he doesn't get it by then, it's like, all right, you tried. Last 10 minutes, it's in the bag. Come on. Got a match in a couple of
I just wonder if that chance by way of he would have hit that in, and not. It obviously was a really fast ball coming as Ardas, and that was kind of his first, like, big movement, But I wonder if he would have been able to get that one and get that third goal if that was him. But I think for the most part, you really can't be too. There's not much you can really be upset about.
No.
Again, it was a very comfortable win. It was what you want to see when you're playing what is supposed to be competition that you are supposed to feel like you can win against, that you are supposed to be better than, right? And that talent is supposed to go in and make those opportunities count. And they did that in this game. And I don't know if there's much more you could really hope for. And as Greg Berhalter said after the game, he's like, "We're on this Ricardo Pepi train, right? We're on the Ricardo Pepi train. Let's see how far it takes us as far as the U.S. Goes." I mean, so we got this big game against Panama coming up on Sunday. Of course, we'll have a show. Probably, we won't have it as late as we're doing this one, but we'll still have it around the 10 or 10:30ish time frame. And then we'll have our regular show as well, talking about some big. Well, we'll obviously have to talk about the final. But man, we had two big, Nations League, UEFA Nations League games that were both
was history. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, there was some big. I mean, crazy to think like two stunners. You're still getting two like classic teams in that final, but two teams that I think, based on the form, you would have thought it was going to be the two losers actually that would have got in. So interesting how that worked when we get to that. But yeah, credit to Greg Berhalter, credit to the players for going out there and doing what they're supposed to do and putting on a good show and making things look good. And we'll see where that confidence goes when you go down to Panama, because we'll talk about this game first since it directly relates to what we were just talking about. Panama lose in El Salvador 1-0. The last 10 minutes was nuts. Panama and El Salvador fighting basically because El Salvador was going in a total time-wasting mode, kicking the ball every time there was a free kick and all that. And they literally got into almost blows. Hugo Perez got a yellow card because he grabbed the ball when it went out one time and held it there. And it was nuts. They gave him like 5 minutes of extra time when they're already in the 91st minute, and then they didn't even go to 95 minutes. Like, it's just more CONCACAFing stuff. But, I mean, and Panama was trying. I mean, they were doing everything they could to at least get the draw there. I mean, obviously, Panama much more talented than El Salvador. And credit to El Salvador for hanging on and getting a big win, because that gives them 5 points now. They're level with Panama right there. In that fourth slot. So, I mean, just like, it's crazy how that one result can change everything. And considering how everything else went, U.S. now sits at the top thanks to the goal difference from this game, obviously. And then, from the Honduras game as well. And then, you've got the two other teams that played each other that we'll get to. And I mean, El Salvador getting that win, putting themselves right there with Panama. So that's positive for El Salvador to get that big win at home.
Huge win at home. And this is something that you could say, oh, this is the jolt that they needed and yada, yada. Maybe they're not going to go on in this big tear, but they can look at this and say, hey, we're able in our house to go get a big scalp. Let's not just go ahead, pack everything in, be sort of middling, what have you. No, we know we can do this. Let's keep this challenge for the sports spot, at least something going. Put a scare into the other teams of the region and let them know, hey, we're still around in some way.
Yeah, no. And that's something we didn't see with Costa Rica and Honduras. They had a 0-0. Another one of Costa Rica's not been looking impressive as far as when it comes to scoring goals. They have not. I mean, Honduras, honestly, as well, have not really been putting themselves on the score sheet either. I mean, their 1-1 draw against Canada was a penalty. So, I mean, And we saw what happened with the U.S. I mean, they have just been very, very. Both of them have been very poor, honestly. And those are two of the big. When you think about CONCACAF, those are the two of the bigger teams, right? The two of the more supposed to be formidable teams, and they certainly are not proving that here in this octagonal so far. I mean, they both get a point, which is obviously helpful for both teams, but they're still kind of just meandering along, both Costa Rica and Honduras. And sometimes I almost feel unfortunate for Jamaica because I feel like they've done a lot more than both of those teams obviously have. So
Yeah,
far.
but at least with Jamaica, you're potentially starting to see, even though there's still only just a couple of windows left, you're starting to see, hey, there's some sort of upside, and you can at least make some sort of charge. Costa Rica and Honduras, it's like the Walking Dead. It's like, yeah, we know, hey, in theory, we're supposed to be able to do something, but we're just not here. We're present, we're making up the numbers, we're playing, but we have nothing to show to where we're as formidable as we normally are.
Right. And I mean, that's even with Honduras having like most of the possession and everything. I mean, Costa Rica was fouling a lot in this thing as well. But that's typical CONCACAF. We're going to get into these, Central America against Central America games, and you're going to have that kind of dirty play at times. But I mean, you're talking about the teams that are now sitting in 6th and 7th right now in the standings. If it ended today, because they're just going around and just nicking points here and there. They're not really, to me, doing what you would expect them to do to get the full 3 from anyone right now. And that being said, I left the one of the more thrilling ones for last. The big, when you talk about the marquee matchup of this round, of round 4, it was Canada going down to Mexico to play in Azteca, the first time they were going to have fans during this World Cup qualifying cycle in Mexico. And then not only that, but the return of Raul Jimenez to the Mexican team and the return of El Chucky Lozano as well. And we saw both of their presence were felt here. Raul was very instrumental on the goal. Chucky as well, and then with a crazy pass to Jorge Sanchez of all players, the right back, to get the goal on their end, and then Jonathan Osorio on the other side for Canada with a wonderful finish to get that tying goal. This is the first time I've really seen, and this is why I think it's interesting to note, because you had two teams that don't necessarily have, I would say, they have some key defenders, right? But they don't have an entire line of defenders that you're saying, okay, they scare me, right? You have Edson Alvarez for Mexico, and Gallardo's great at going forward, but they're vulnerable, especially the right back for Mexico, and then also just a lot of that line for Canada as well. And you saw they were scared. Alfonso Davies and Tayshaun Buchanan. And credit to John Herman, though. He started both of them from the get-go. He started his first team in this game. He didn't just, let's just kind of, play who we can, see if we get the point. If not, we got some other teams we know we can beat, right?
Yeah, and 1-on-1 is just felt so appropriate, because even if those last 15, 20 minutes, was it the severity of some of these other Central American games? No, but you saw a lot of that chippiness and a lot more chances going back and forth and some major close calls. This could have easily been a 3-2 game either way. The way that the flurries were coming, it's like, all right, this is Canada. They're being serious. It's like, watch out.
Robert, we're watching the wrong show here. You want us to talk about the NFL? It's I'll have to make an
That's
appearance on the kickoff
Wednesday.
at some point, so we can talk.
That's
we can talk about
Wednesday.
it. But no, thank you, Robert, for at least watching and entertaining us here, at least. But I mean, either way, I feel like Mexico just this is not a good result for them. You're in Azteca, the first time you're playing with fans, and you have a 1-1 result. You needed to get the 3 points. Tata Martino's probably going to get a lot of crap from the media after this. I haven't watched the press conference or anything, but I'm pretty sure he's going to get a lot of questions.
Even
I think
on
it's
the front line, he just looked mad, flat out mad.
Yeah,
I don't blame
him.
him.
Because he knows. I mean, and it's the thing is that like they got. I mean, but that's the thing that he will need to realize, right? This is a different Canada team.
Yeah,
this is not. This is not the Canada team of years ago where you're going like, oh man, this is like losing to Grenada, or this is like losing to one of the Caribbean countries or whatever. This is Canada is a don't just sit there and think that you're gonna get by Canada. I mean, Alphonso Davies, Tejan Buchanan, Jonathan David, that is a formidable front line. That is a dangerous front line. When you're talking about where all three of these, I mean, obviously Tejan Buchanan plays in MLS, but he plays for the best MLS team going right now. And then, you know, you're looking at an Alphonso Davies who plays in Bayern Munich, and then Jonathan David plays at Lille, and he's coming off a good form. Obviously, he didn't get to have a goal in this one, but when you look at all their other players, at least when you talk midfield going forward, that's a formidable team. And Mexico, again, for me, like just I feel like they were missing something in the middle of the park. There, the frontline guys are fantastic. I thought Raul Jimenez coming back gave them a lot of life. He was very active in the game. He was whether he was going to the left or he was playing more central. He was involved in play, getting guys involved. It just Mexico looks good. They look better than having Funes Mori up there, but I don't know that you can really. I mean, look, you're Mexico, right? You expect to win everything.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, and I know you're at home, but the U.S. went through this as well. But I don't think this is kind of like the U.S. where Canada didn't sit back for the first half of that game like they did for this one. They went at them and they almost caught them off guard in like the first couple of minutes. And then Mexico were able to kind of settle in. But the U.S. went through this too. They lost 1-0 at home. Canada is this is the first time Canada has ever done that. They took points away from home to both Mexico and the United States. I mean, that's a big deal. That's a huge win for Canada right there.
This is tremendous. And for all the talk about, your Canadian MLS clubs, the Canadian Premier League slowly starting to hit a bit of a stride, all this going on, you are seeing, hey, these are the reason why these leagues exist or these clubs are more capable, because you're getting more and more of this Canadian talent and playing for Canada. Plus, in the U.S., we were able to do it a bit. With Mexico, they tried to, and Canada is extra dangerous, as you said up front. They have that great emphasis with speed and the right amount of power. We have our own speedy guys too, which is why it would be even more impressive in some ways for Canada to get those points against the U.S. But for some reason, even with the expertise of Tata Martino and how he set up the defensive midfield, they couldn't immediately counter that speed. It's like, hey, wait a minute. We've seen fast. This is on another level. We got to adjust to handle this. To their credit, they did, but you had one or two of those early moments go the wrong way. By the time you adjust, you're chasing the game. And Canada's looking at this. It's like, we know what we have to do. We know more of how we can play and give other teams fits.
Yeah, and then they did that. I mean, there was times where Tejan just absolutely blew by. Jorge Sanchez or Gallardo or Alfonso Davies as well. Alfonso Davies had a shot late to be able to get one on a breakaway, and he kind of messed up on that final pass. It somehow wound up at Jonathan David's feet, and he wasn't able to really go anywhere with it because he kind of wasn't expecting it and didn't really get to get in stride or anything. But they had their moments, and Chucky also had one where he just absolutely he had it all for him to score like early on, and he skied it instead of putting it in the bottom corner, and that's one that kind of wish you had back if you thought that, but that's gonna happen. I mean, he's been playing well for Napoli, but coming back and being in a Mexico shirt is a whole different deal at Azteca. So, I think honestly, if you take it out of the context of the fact that you're Mexico and again you expect to win everything, it's a great result for Canada. It's not a great result for Mexico, but I don't think it's the end of the world result when you look at the other two teams that you have to play against. Honduras, who's been absolutely awful, and then at El Salvador. So, and obviously the El Salvador game is going to be tough. It's always tough to play there, but they always seem to find a way to get the goals. You thought Panama was going to be a game where they were going to drop 2 points, and they didn't. They got that goal. So, like with Mexico, I don't really necessarily worry about them. This was a game that I feel like you don't want to drop the points, but it's not the end of the world if you drop the points either.
No, I mean, better 1 point really than none in this case, because if it were a loss, still not the end of the world, but more of that panic sets in. But it's like, okay, you at least defended your home turf to that extent.
Right, no,
very good team. Yeah.
It's not the end of the world, but oh man.
Yeah.
The media would make it the end of the world if they lost because you're losing at home then. That's a different deal if you had gone to Canada and you lose, whatever, but
if it was being not at Azteca, for example, it would be like, okay, whatever. The fans and everything at Azteca would have made that a completely different story. But again, you're absolutely right. Macrocosm, yeah, a win is optimal, but getting a result, a decent one, you can still do things. But the perceptions for the media, it's like, they're already looking at this a teeny bit crossways. So,
yeah. I mean, this is going to be an interesting round when we get to Sunday because U.S. arguably have probably their toughest game going in on Sunday, and then Mexico have it all to do of being able to erase what that was and be able to put themselves back in the front again, of being able to say, okay, you were worried about us, you were saying that, oh man, okay, well, is Mexico faltering here? And I think they'll be all right. I mean, Canada has Jamaica. That's another one where they could really, some of the players that didn't play in the game here against Mexico because of COVID, like Hoylet and a few others that are going to play in this game. Let's see how they make a difference. And then, honestly, this is a big game for Costa Rica and El Salvador as well. If El Salvador are able to go into Costa Rica and get anything, man, and Costa Rica drops points again, that's bad. Yeah. Because then you're going and playing the U.S. in another brand spanking, in another pro-U.S. stadium. Yeah, that's not going to be a good look for you.
I'm not
to go and probably perhaps drop 3 points there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that if Costa Rica doesn't at least get a point that...
No, Costa Rica, I think for me that's a must-win against El Salvador.
Yeah, and this is my point. Because what I'm saying is, if they don't, I'm not going to go full on a limb and say, okay, Los Ticos are done. But realistically, If you don't, and as you say, it's a must win. If you don't get at least something, then following up with a potential shellacking against the U.S., if that happens, then you are done. There's no way back.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're the U.S., I don't think you want necessarily a desperate dog coming to your place either. So if you're the U.S., you probably want them to at least get a point. But man, talk about if El Salvador can go down to Costa Rica and get another one of those 1-0 wins, that would be amazing for El Salvador just to be able to do that. And then Canada's got Panama as well. So that's going to be an interesting one because, I mean, Panama were probably expecting to at least get a point, if not 3 against El Salvador there. They were not expecting that loss. So, man, that game on Sunday is going to be extra spicy because it is, to me, it is Greg Berhalter's toughest test. You're fighting against one of the leaders. You already played Canada. You got that 1-0 draw. It was disappointing at home. You wanted to get the full 3 points, whatever. You haven't played Mexico yet. That's in the next round.
Yep.
Or the next set of games. This is your big game for this 3. And this is the one where you're going to measure him, I think, against as to how the team plays. So, you got that to look forward to for Sunday. Those are some interesting games to go be able to watch and knock down and talk about. We'll obviously be here to talk about them on Sunday as well. We're going to have our regular show. Obviously, going to be talking about that Nations League final. Even though, well, I don't know if I'm still working from home, I might be able to watch it, but we'll see for sure. But and also, all the other World Cup qualifying will be going on, or we'll have started again. I think it starts again tomorrow for the European teams. But yeah, certainly that 4 games to talk about on Sunday. Panama, U.S. starting at 6:00, and then Jamaica, Canada, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Mexico, Honduras. Which you would imagine Mexico, Honduras is the one that you would think Mexico has that one, as well as Canada, Jamaica. You'd think if they're the leaders, they have those games. But I guess you never know with CONCACAF, right? You never know.
I am just like throw darts at the board, and it's like, all right, this somehow one fluky thing, these things, it can all happen. Oh, as they say, even though it's not an election year, this is ripe for some sort of October surprise.
Let's just hope the October surprise is not Panama going and shellacking the U.S. or something. But we'll see what happens on Sunday. Until then, we hope you enjoyed this special episode of breaking down what's going around in CONCACAF and also the U.S. and Jamaica game. If you like what you heard, you can go listen to us on any kind of podcast service that there is. Overcast, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, whatever. And of course, we had our regular episode on Sunday last week. We talked about the NWSL, big deal there. Thank you to everybody that watched it on YouTube later and then listened to it as well. Whether you listened on the Last Word feed or you listened on our feed. And then, of course, Last Word as well, Last Word Radio. Thank you for having us there. Of course, you can watch us on video, YouTube, Twitch. We're live when we do the show. And then, of course, we're also live on the Facebook page, which you can go like. You can go follow us on Twitch. That would help us a lot. And, of course, you can follow WTM Network at WTM Network on Twitter, at Squid Sports Head Eric, and at WTM Sean for me. And until Sunday, everybody, keep enjoying that international break. We'll have 2 shows for you. Later.
Peace.